With just a few days to go until election 2024, we're going to spin you through some key counties in the most critical states in the election so you can get a sense of where Kamala Harris and or Donald Trump need to do well in order to carry the swing states, or just where a shift in margin could be telling as to the final result. Yes, we have some bellwether counties in here. Please note before we begin, we're getting into just the 7 states we have identified as the swing states which will decide the election. They are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. There are hundreds of counties among these 7 states, and therefore a lot of counties that could be instrumental. We're going to give you a handful per state because you don't have all day and neither do we, but we might shout out a few others that we don't dig into here. Let's go, starting with Arizona. This was, of course, a Biden state in 2020, and there is no county in Arizona more consequential than Maricopa. It is home to Phoenix, but also a bunch of other bigger cities in the state. As you can see, Maricopa went to Biden in 2020 by about 2 points, or 45,000 votes and change, which put him over the top. Over 2 million people voted in Maricopa last time, and there's generally a strong correlation between the candidate who wins Maricopa and the candidate who wins Arizona. That is also evident in recent prior results, as Trump won the county and state in 2016, and Mitt Romney did as well in 2012. That's quite the blue shift, however, over the past 3 elections, and it bears watching. If Trump wants to win Arizona, he needs to at least play to a tie in Maricopa or flip it. If somehow Maricopa gets bluer, then there is a strong likelihood that Kamala Harris is winning the state. This county was 61% of the state's electorate last time, so its gravitational pull on the rest of the state is significant. However, it's not the only one to watch. The blue margins in Pima County, home to Tucson, are also going to be crucial. Biden won it comfortably, and the question is if Harris can build in enough of a buffer here to offset losses, if any, in Maricopa. The problem is that there are way fewer voters in Pima. Harris juicing a few more points out of here would help, but not as much as holding the line in Maricopa would. This county has definitely gotten bluer, and I would think Harris needs to be winning it by 15 to 20 points to feel like she's in reasonable shape in Arizona. Win it by less than that, and I don't know that she's going to be feeling good about it. One more county to highlight here is in between the first two, Pinal County. This was the largest county to vote red in 2020. Trump won it by about 17 points, and there are a couple of reasons it's important. One, because the size of Trump's margin here could speak to his health overall in the state. He won by 17 points last time, which was down a little bit from 2016, but overall it has been stable the last 3 cycles. A big shift in how this county votes is going to stand out. 2, Pinal is starting to gain a bit more clout. It is still dwarfed by Maricopa and even Pima, but its vote share is starting to grow as its population does. Its growth has been spiking, so who are these new residents and how do they vote? Maricopa and Pima have trended blue at the presidential level, so the GOP would love a growing county that favors them. Yavapai is kind of a similar county in that it's red and gives comfortable GOP margins, but isn't growing nearly as quickly. So I think the Pinal margin is going to be the one to watch of Arizona's red counties. Georgia is next, and this state has a lot of counties, so we won't get into all or even most of them, but some deserve recognition. Biden narrowly won it in 2020. We'll start by giving you 9 of these counties as a block. These are the blue counties in metro Atlanta, which will be hugely important to Kamala Harris. The 9 counties are Clayton, Cobb, DeKalb, Douglas, Fulton, Gwinnett, Henry, Newton, and Rockdale. This is the Democratic shield around Atlanta. In 2020, Biden won these counties by a better than 2-to-1 margin, and here's why this is important. It's mostly surrounded by red, but these 9 counties formed about 42% of the electorate in 2020. That's a lot of influence on the politics of the state, but the GOP still wins in Georgia more than it doesn't. 2 things to watch for in Georgia are A, whether Harris runs up scores this big in 2024, and B, how much vote share this part of the state has. Early voting suggests it is holding about the same percentage of the state's votes so far in 2024, which can change, but that could be potential good news for Harris. As of November 1st, most Georgians have already voted, and we might be at about 75% of the turnout already, assuming it's at 70% statewide, which would be a little higher than 2020. Some pundits wrote Georgia off for her, but it definitely doesn't look like it's over, thanks to those 9 counties. Another blue county lagging a little in early voting is Chatham, home to Savannah and Georgia's own peach of a beach, Tybee Island. This is one of those few counties outside of metro Atlanta where Democrats need to run up some totals. A few other counties which might fit this description are Bibb, where you'll find Macon, Clark, home to Athens, and Muskogee with Columbus. Metro Atlanta is turning out, but if these four don't, if it's close, they could be decisive. As for the GOP, they've got a little red wall of their own north of Atlanta. Cherokee County was trumped by 39 in 2020. Forsyth County went for Trump by 33 points, and Hall County was trumped by 43. Trump netted about 140,000 votes from those three counties, which didn't offset Metro Atlanta, but consider that a lot of those counties on this map are small and very red. They add up. That said, Trump's margins in these three are important to him, and he can't afford a lot of vote degradation here. They seem to be turning out, which might be good news for him, but we will see. The last Georgia county to highlight is Fayette. This one sits right outside the Democratic shield in Metro Atlanta. Trump won it by about 7 points in 2020, which maybe you think is nice if you're a Republican, but the trend is definitely not their friend here. Look at what these margins were a couple cycles ago. The GOP used to win this county in a walk, and now it's competitive. In the 2022 Senate runoff, Herschel Walker beat Raphael Warnock in Fayette, but by less than a point. If this county were to flip, it would be consequential. Biden won without it in 2020, but if this trend continues, it would show that at least some of the Atlanta suburbs are getting further away from Trump, not closer. Technically, he's the one playing from behind in Georgia, so he can't afford to lose counties that he won in 2020. Moving on to Michigan, we say hello to the first blue wall state. Biden won in 2020. We have to start with Wayne County, the state's biggest. This is, of course, where you will find Detroit. Biden won the county by 38 points, so a solid win and a net of over 300,000 votes. These margins have actually been going down a little. For example, Obama won it by about 47 points in 2012 and had no trouble carrying Michigan. Hillary Clinton won it by 37 and lost the state. The issues Harris is having with Muslim uncommitted voters over Gaza could be a problem. It won't prevent her from winning the county, however, just a question of the margin. If she pulls down similar margins to Biden and Wayne, she's going to be thrilled. On the other hand, Trump cutting into it in any meaningful way is going to put the state at risk. Over 15% of Michigan's electorate came from here in 2020. Let's go northeast to Macomb next. This is a fairly red county on the presidential level at this point. Trump won it by 8 points in 2020, but he won it by 11 or so in 2016. That was a telling shift from 2016 to 2020, and another such shift could really tell the tale of how Michigan is going to go. Obama won it in 2012, so not impossible for Democrats to win, but Trump has won it twice and no reason to think he won't win it 3 times. The Trump campaign would probably be pleased getting it back up to double digits. Anything less than that, and I don't know that he's doing enough. Remember, like Georgia, Trump is playing from behind here, but much further behind than in Georgia. If he can't put up a robust win in Macomb, then I doubt he's going to get what he needs elsewhere in Michigan. Staying in Metro Detroit, we've got Oakland County, a solid Biden county from 2020 that he won by over 100,000 votes. This county is suburban, and I think will be just as telling for Harris as Macomb is for Trump. It hasn't gone red since 1992, and generally speaking has trended Democratic since 2008. Trump only lost it by 8 in 2016, but so did Mitt Romney in 2012, and he still lost. This is the kind of county Harris should be winning convincingly. A potential bellwether county is Saginaw. Biden won it by a very narrow margin in 2020, and it turned out to be meaningful, as Trump had won it in 2016 en route to carrying Michigan. The swing from 2016 to 2020 here was very small, but it was a psychological victory for Democrats if nothing else. Obama won it big in 2012, but I don't think we're heading for that kind of result. If we were, Harris would be winning Michigan comfortably. Saginaw County has a lot of union members, and Trump made inroads with blue-collar workers starting back in 2016, which is why this traditionally blue county has been much closer. If you want to know how things are going with that demographic in Michigan, this county will tell you a lot. Finally, we will zoom in on Kent County, home to Grand Rapids. Biden won it by 6 points last time, and this is significant because this used to be a Republican county. It has been trending bluer from Romney winning it by nearly 8 points to Trump losing it by 6. Obama and Biden are the only Democrats to win Kent since Lyndon Johnson, and Gerald Ford was its congressman for a long time to tell you how red it is. This is an historically GOP county, but Trump lost it, and the congresswoman is now a Democrat. This is one of those places that the GOP lost a lot of momentum since Trump became the perpetual GOP nominee 8 years ago. So what to watch for here is, does the erosion continue, or is what happened in 2020 as blue as Kent County gets? Nevada is next, and not many counties to discuss, but they're important. First, you can't talk Nevada without talking about Clark County. Basically, every major city outside of Reno is in this county, and all are clustered around Las Vegas. This is like what Maricopa is to Arizona, but even more extreme. Biden won the county by about 9 points in 2020, and he needed it all to keep the state blue. You should note that the Democratic margins in the county have eroded a little bit, from 15 points in 2012 to 9 in 2020, and going even further back, 19 points in 2008. However, you will also notice that its share of the electorate has been growing, and the Democrats had still been winning it by enough. From 2008 through now, Clark has made up a little more of the electorate than each prior election. What's interesting, however, is that Clark is about 73% of Nevada's population, but it was only about 69% of its voters last time. So Clark isn't even as strong as it could be electorally. For reasons we'll get into, Democrats need to win this county with a strong margin. We'll also talk about Washoe, home to Reno, which also went blue but by a smaller margin. In 2016, it flirted with going GOP but didn't, though Biden won it by more in 2020 than Obama did in 2012. Its share of the electorate has largely been stable, though it dropped a bit relative to the rest of Nevada in 2020. This county plus Clark means you have about 87% of the state's electorate in these two counties, or about 7 out of every 8 Nevada voters is from either Clark or Washoe. Democratic margins here tend to be telling, and Democrats really do have to win this county. Why is that? Well, outside of Clark and Washoe, the vast majority of the other counties we didn't talk about in this state are red, and very much so. Trump will win most of those counties by 50, 60, or even 70 points. Only about 1/8 of the state lives there, but the voting bloc is almost unanimously GOP. So if you haven't built up your Clark and Washoe firewall by enough, the GOP can win this state. North Carolina is the next state, and we've got several counties to discuss. Wake County is first, and this is where you'd find Raleigh. This is a blue county and has been since 2008. And as you can see, Biden won it by about 26 points last time and netted over 160,000 votes here. It's a fast-growing blue county, getting bluer over time, and this has given Democrats general optimism in the state that the demographics will eventually turn their way. The same goes for Mecklenburg County, where you will find Charlotte. The Democratic raw vote in this county has about tripled since 2000, while the GOP's hasn't even doubled, so it's safe to call this a blue county. Fast-growing and safe Democratic, as Biden won it by 35 points. These are two counties where Democrats absolutely must run up the score if they want to flip North Carolina. There were others where they need to do well that we're not featuring, like Cumberland, home to Fayetteville, Durham, obviously home to Durham, Guilford, which is Greensboro, and Forsyth, which is Winston-Salem. All of them need to go blue and big if Harris is going to flip the state. As for closer notable counties, we'll start with New Hanover, which is where you'll find Wilmington and Wrightsville Beach. Biden narrowly flipped the county in 2020, winning by 2 points and ending a string of GOP victories here. Joe Biden was the first Democrat to carry New Hanover since Jimmy Carter in 1976. Prior to 1968, it was a solid South blue county. Let's see if Trump flips it back or if it gets bluer. This would be an interesting one for Harris to win, as it's mostly white, a growing county with a lot of new development going on, and a swingy county that has a fair number of elected Republicans representing it, but looks like it might be going purple overall. Alamance is a really interesting county, and I'll tell you why. Home to Burlington, it's red, and Trump won it by 8 points last time. It sits in between two dense blue areas, the Triad to the west with Greensboro and Winston-Salem, and the Raleigh-Durham area to the east. This is a red county almost surrounded by blue. GOP margins here are decreasing as the population is increasing. Democrats haven't won it since 1976, but in 2020, they got their best vote share since then. Let's pair this with another equally telling county, Cabarrus, down outside Metro Charlotte, where you will find Kannapolis and Concord. Trump won the county by 9 points in 2020 as he held onto the state, but the drop in GOP margins is even more stark than in Alamance. Mitt Romney won this county by 20 points a little over a decade ago, and even Trump won by a similar margin in 2016, but that margin got cut in half in 2020. Cabarrus County has been red since 1952, so watching the margins shrink here is probably concerning to the GOP. As Alamance and Cabarrus go, Trump's campaign would probably be happy to see those margins get back up into the double digits. They might be feeling okay about North Carolina if that's what happens. However, if the margins continue to erode, that's going to be a big red flag in that these are two reliably red counties that are suddenly becoming competitive. And for the record, even though I wouldn't expect Harris to win either one, if she did, that would be a 5-alarm fire for Trump because it probably means he's going to lose North Carolina. I would put money on it. Roy Cooper only lost Alamance by a point and Cabarrus by 4 in 2020, and he was getting reelected by about 5 points. How these counties go on election night is going to be hugely telling. Also in North Carolina, we have Lenoir County. Not a particularly big one in East Carolina, but it could be a bellwether. Trump took it by 3.5 points in 2020, and it has gone GOP every year since 1972. So why say it's a potential bellwether? Barack Obama lost the county twice, but by exceedingly small margins. In 2008, he lost by 23 votes. In 2012, he lost ground and was defeated by 32 votes. The county was effectively tied both years, and in one of them, Obama won the state. Sometimes it's the smaller counties like this which could be indicative of a bigger trend. Roy Cooper won it in 2020, so there is recent precedent for Democrats. Finally, we'll do the same thing but with Nash County, northeast of Raleigh and where you will find Nashville and part of Rocky Mount. Biden won it by a hair last time, and generally speaking, it's trending blue. Trump won it by less than 100 votes in 2016, while Biden won it by a little more than that in 2020. The last 4 elections here have split 2-2, and all have been tight. This county looks like it could be super close, but what if it isn't? Advantage to whichever candidate is winning. On now to Pennsylvania, and we have to lead off the Keystone State by talking about Philadelphia. Kamala Harris must post a big number here if she's going to win the state, given how red many of the counties in the T of Pennsylvania are. Biden won it by 63 points last time, which actually represents a backslide for Democrats. But stretching it out further, Philly used to be a 65 to 70% Democratic city until the 90s, and now it's an 80-something% Democratic city. They're going to do just fine here, but it's a question of turnout and margins. This is the city that put Biden over the top in 2020, so Harris needs the same magic as over 1/10 of Pennsylvania voters are here. Zooming out to Greater Philly, there are 5 counties you need to know. In addition to Philly itself, there's Chester, Bucks, Montgomery, and Delaware. All of them voted blue in 2020. All will probably vote blue again in 2024. And again, Harris needs these suburbs to turn out for her. Bucks will be the closest as it has some strong GOP pockets, but Chester, Delco, and Montco will all be solidly blue. Biden won the 5 by a combined 33 points, and that's a ton of votes on the board, accounting for about 1/3 of the Commonwealth's total electorate. On the other side of the state, it's Allegheny County, home to Pittsburgh and the Black and Yellow. Biden won it by 20, and Harris is probably hoping to do about the same. The further you get from Pittsburgh, the redder this county gets, but even at that, it doesn't get super red like towns in the T, like near Punxsutawney or in Westmoreland County. This will go blue, but by how much is the question. This is another county where Kamala Harris has to bank as many votes as she can. Switching sides again, let's check out Berks County, where you will find Reading. Trump won it by 8, because even though Reading itself is pretty blue, everything around it isn't. Obama won it in 2008, but it's getting redder since. Trump only won it by 7 in 2016 and expanded his margin a little. He'll be looking to hold on or increase that margin, but as you may know from the news, the Puerto Rican community is not too happy with the Trump campaign, and they do have a presence in Reading, so we'll see if those numbers shift at all. A little bit up the road is the Lehigh Valley, starting with Lehigh County and the Allentown area. This is one of those areas where both campaigns need to find a way to scratch out the win, and whichever side does is going to have the upper hand in the state. Lehigh went blue by about 8 points in 2020, which bounced back to 2012 levels after Trump made it a narrower loss in 2016. As for the county next door, Northampton, this county is where you'll find Bethlehem and Easton and is one of Pennsylvania's major bellwether counties. Biden took it by less than a point, while Trump won it by a few in 2016 and Obama won it by a few in 2012. Circle this one on the map because if Pennsylvania decides the election again, this county might hold the clue as to how it goes. Another Pennsylvania bellwether is Erie County. Biden won by a point last time, and this blue-collar county did break a long Democratic winning streak to support Trump in 2016. It would be quite interesting if Northampton and Erie split different ways, but look for the party that wins both to have an historical advantage. Of course, both counties could just be wrong this time, we'll just have to see. Staying in Pennsylvania, we have two more featured counties, both in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. Lackawanna is where you'll find Scranton, and maybe Biden won by 8 because he was from there, but this margin was an improvement from 2016, but a huge fall from 2012, as the county is redder than it used to be. Meanwhile, next door, Luzerne County with Wilkes-Barre is reasonably red. Trump won it by 14, and this is a county that swung hard for Trump, seeing how Obama won it twice, and even George W. Bush never won it. Has the GOP topped out in both counties, or do they have more room to grow? If it's the latter, it could speak to a further shift in Pennsylvania away from the big cities. Up and over to Wisconsin, our last state, let's check out Milwaukee County, where the Democrats won by about 40 points last time en route to a narrow statewide victory. This was an improvement on Hillary Clinton and even Obama's second margin here. If you told the Harris camp that they'd win Milwaukee County by about 40 points, they'd probably take it. Next, we'll look at three counties which usually group together, and we call them the WOW counties. They're Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington. These are three suburban GOP bastions in the state and have been responsible for some recent past Republican victories in Wisconsin. Trump won them by a combined 35 points, and I think my own curiosity is if Trump holds that together. First, Ozaukee County has been getting a smidge bluer in recent elections, and two, the mayor of Waukesha recently endorsed Kamala Harris, which may not be a huge surprise since January 6 drove him from the GOP, but it's quite unusual to see Democrats get any meaningful endorsements in these counties. And then there's Dane County, a Democratic bastion in south central Wisconsin, which is home to Madison. Liberal voters and college students drove up Democratic margins here to almost 53% in 2020, and Harris, who has been filling huge rallies in Madison, would love to post another 75% number there in 2024. The Democratic vote share can only go up so much more, but getting 75% again is doable. Staying in southern Wisconsin, two counties to look at are Kenosha and Racine. You may only know them from a league of their own, which is completely valid and understandable. But both were close in 2020, and any significant movement in either one will be amplified on election night. Trump won Kenosha by 3, and as for Racine, he won it by 4. All counties surrounding Milwaukee are red, but of them, these two are the ones in most danger of flipping, if they even do. Move up the highway to Brown County, where the Cheeseheads live their lives at Lambeau Field, of course referring to Green Bay. Brown is a GOP county, with Trump having won it by 7. Obama won it in 2008, but other than that, it's been Republican most years. It bears watching because Trump won it by 11 in 2016 when he won, and 7 when he lost. That margin is going to be interesting to observe. Finally, we end on a relatively small county on the pinky finger of Wisconsin, Dorr. Why this one? For one thing, it was very close in 2020, with Biden winning by 1.5 points. However, this is a bellwether. It has been right on every national election winner since 1996, missing just once since Reagan's landslide in 1980. It might not say much, but what it does could be a crystal ball into the final result. Election day is fast approaching, so follow us on social media and be sure to visit electionyard.com. See you on election night, November 5th.